This episode of the Rhythm Pyro podcast is brought to you by Pyro Tracks. Music is the beating heart of any Pyro musical, and an engaging, well-produced soundtrack that keeps your spectators drawn into the experience of your show is really the difference between a good show and a simply outstanding one. I'm Bo from Team Rhythm, and I've been producing, mixing, and mastering music and audio for about 20 years. I engineer this podcast, which sounds like this before I do my thing. The podcast music, yep, that's all me too. I've gotten the opportunity to put up some really amazing shows to my own original musical compositions, and now I want to help you give your show soundtracks the care and attention that they deserve to break through the noise and be as truly unique as your show's design. Whether you're a high-volume commercial display designer that doesn't have time to do your own track production, or you're an annual backyard guy that doesn't know how, I'll work with you to take your musical vision and create a seamless, unique, and engaging track edit that will take your spectators on a journey from beginning to end. Custom intros, custom outros, voiceovers, we can track those ourselves to your script or professionally clean up and mix your audio. Song shortening, precise editing, no more jarring cuts in between songs or within the same song. Production elements, even completely original song compositions if your budget can handle it. So if that's something that interests you, head over to bozie8823.com/pyrotracks with an X. That's BOZIE8823.com/pyrotracks, PYROTRAX. Fill out the questionnaire and let's rock and roll.
He said he used Ed Sims, didn't he?
Yeah, and for some reason, at least the ones that I've always got, even if they were from Marcus, are from Arcam, those charcoal ones don't go as high as like the silver tiger tails. I have no idea why.
Well, the blue tip and the red tip that I used didn't go as high as the silver tiger tails either.
Which silver tiger tails? The ones from Arcam? The new ones?
No, I haven't used the new ones yet. I'm still using PFX 084.
Jimmy, move your mic just a little closer. Either that or...
Oh my God, it's in my mouth. You want me to turn my gain up?
No, just get some... you need caffeine or wine or something. Eat a chocolate ball.
What does that even mean?
There you go. That's the voice we're looking for.
That's what I'm looking for.
What does that even mean? So I just got to lean over,
really dig in,
tongue on a little soft part of this and get it a little wet.
You pretty much have to be like a half inch from the mic.
When I eat my chocolate balls that Bo bitched about, I was 10 feet away.
Right. Use discretion, right? If you're eating a chocolate ball, away with my chocolate eat balls. A chocolate ball within an inch of the mic, period.
It was 10 feet.
10 feet, Mike. 10
it was
feet.
10 feet.
No,
somewhere.
I spent so much time editing yomping of chocolate balls out of the last episode. I'd like to not do that again.
I like to eat my balls.
Yo, my chocolate balls.
Chocolate Sunday balls.
Chocolate, make it mad.
Welcome to the Rhythm Pyro podcast, where Bozie, AJ, and Jamie ignite your passion for pyromusical show design while testing the very limits of your capacity for stupid.
I think I understand why it does that, though. I think it ramps off in volume because you notice when I'm talking, it stops and you can't hear it anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's what it's doing. The whole platform is looking for audio that's being broadcast, and it's like, okay, this person's being way too loud. We need to turn them down. Otherwise, nobody's going to be able to hear the other guy. What's up, gang? Welcome to the Rhythm Pyro podcast. I'm Bo. That's AJ.
And I'm Jamie.
Hola.
This is in my script. It says, I'm Bo. That's AJ. And then you're Jamie. You wait until I get to you're Jamie, and then you say something. Let's try it again. I'm just kidding. I'm not going to say that again. That's stupid. I'm not saying that again.
Do it again, dude.
No, I'm not doing it again. We're hobbyists.
No, you're just going to do
All
it.
three of us are hobbyists and semi-professional pyro show designers. And more specifically, we love the Pyromusicals. So this podcast is a place where we can get together, talk shop, talk art, and news, and share tips and tricks and insights with you. And that's what we're going to do. Today, we're going to cover workflow. So I guess before we do that, though, what's up, boys? How you doing?
Hola. What's going on, brother?
Oh,
brothers. Sorry.
Brothers, yeah. Busy,
what do you
man.
say, guys?
Busy.
Delay.
Actually, you know what? Before we get into workflow, what's keeping you guys busy in Pyro?
What's not keeping me busy in Pyro right now? Are you kidding me? Oh my God. It's like 4 shows. Tomorrow I go to Doug's house to go script from noon to like 9.
You're scripting at Doug's house?
Yeah.
What do you do? What are you scripting?
So we're doing, it's for 2 shows actually, same song. Mr. Red, White, and Blue song. So I think he wants to take on a big chunk of this one because he says he's got ideas down and he's writing stuff and lists and like time signatures, like listening to songs saying, all right, at 1:12, I want to do this kind of
That's really
something.
cool, man.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's going to work out, I think, better too, because it'll lighten my load onto it.
Yeah.
And then it just requires me going, all right, this is what you're thinking. All right. And punch it in.
That's really cool. Kind of like what I do with Pops when he comes over a week before we go to the lake. And I get a text message that says, hey, Bo, I got to script my finale. When can I come over?
Stop talking about it.
Yeah, well, when's that show with Doug?
June 30th. Yeah.
30th. Okay. See, you guys got plenty of time. So you don't know my pain at all.
No, but that's the thing. So I'm using that song and then we're going to do it but then we're doing that song and another song at that show with Peter So I have to do 3 different versions of it. A really cheaper version budget one, a medium budget one, and a very expensive budget one. So
yeah. Well, still though, you'll have a nice foundation.
Oh yeah.
I can't do the same show twice, but if I owned a display company and I was doing stuff all the time, I mean, I don't think I'd have any problem, using a foundation that was already pre-built, kind of working off of that.
I know you broke your role for me one time.
Yeah, I did. One time I did. And I thought for sure it was all going to go to shit because it's like, oh man, this is...
And it turned out awesome.
Yeah. Jamie, what are you working on, my man?
Right now, just incorporating some new product into Fireworks and messing with some DMX, testing it out and seeing how it's going to work with the flow of everything.
Well, the test that you did with the Rockville lights on the side of the barn or the house or wherever you were at looked great.
Yeah, they were really bright. I like that. Now I want to try the back cloth and see what it's actually going to look like and see how it'll look in the strobe effect, or if I want to use some just regular old par lights off to the side for strobes. Yeah.
The problem that I found, at least in Finale, with the strobe effects on those lights is getting the refresh rate of the strobe to match what the light actually does in real life. Because I think there's not really an easy way to test for that. You almost have to have a DMX controller that's, not the modules, or doing it in Finale, because it's kind of like doing it the long way. But you get a DMX controller and then try to figure out, okay, here's my value, and here's looking at the light in real life, I can see how fast it's strobing, and this looks like it matches the section of music or the feel that I'm going for. Then you almost have to throw that into Finale and then try to find that refresh rate. But
couldn't you use the beat of the music to match the strobe?
You could.
Would that be another way to do it?
Yeah, you can do it manually, 100%. I mean, when I did Power Rangers at the lake, and actually I think a lot of the stuff for Octoblast last year was the same thing. When I was doing all of those blinks, I mean, everything was more like a one-shot workflow inside of Finale, right? Everything was manually placed. There was one spot in Power Rangers that I didn't do it manually. And it was almost right when they were, going to that break, and, Goldar was going into his whole thing about, the candle going out. And there was one section where I just used nothing but just straight white light. And I used that strobing effect, that was built into Finale, and it worked, but it took me a while to figure out how to code basically there's like an overlay effect that you put over top of cues that are grouped up in Finale that make them strobe. And I can't remember exactly what they call that, but you overlay it over top of your cues, and then it will kind of match the strobe. Problem is like when I was programming the refresh rate into Finale, like there were 3 distinct refresh rates that really worked, and the other ones, it just kind of seemed hit or miss. So I don't know. Part of that's probably user error. I probably couldn't figure it out, but I think it got to the point where I just found which one looked good in real life testing, and then, export it out, continually grab a light, and then run the script. It's just a really long way to do testing. But
that's what I'm doing.
Yeah, that's what I'm doing.
Yeah,
and
I feel I'm sorry, buddy.
You can't record it to review it. You've got to watch it live because the strobe doesn't show up in the recording very well.
Yeah.
But once you have those settings, they're set forever, though, right?
Yeah. Once you have the settings, they're set forever. But
so it's like making a sim pretty much perfectly.
It is like making a sim. The problem is you almost have to, you got to figure out in Finale in his code string, because you're telling it, hey, use this refresh rate to simulate how fast this light is going to strobe, right? And I found the same thing with like DMX lighting software. You have to get it just right to figure out if, where you're at on that fader matches what your light is doing in real life. Because if it's not, then, you might get the feel wrong.
So what about yourself, brother? What have you been up to for Pyro? Well, God. Yeah.
Yeah.
I can think of a lot for you too right now.
Yeah. It's nuts, man. The Lake Show's probably 60 to 70% done. I finished the song. So both grandmother, you guys know, both grandmothers died last year. So this year's, the lake is my grandmother on my dad's side. That's her property, and that's where the party goes every year. So this year it's extremely emotional. Writing the song, and then really the lyrics, trying to think up lyrics for that song was just absolutely painstaking. I mean, there was probably a good week, 2 weeks ago where, I had to walk away from the computer and the studio for, every 2 or 3 hours, I just had to take a break because it was too much.
This is going to be a tribute to your grandma?
Yeah, it's going to be a tribute to both Cease and Grandma Nini.
That's going to be awesome.
Yeah, it'll be cool, man. And it's going to be neat for Pops too, because he's really going to kind of go outside of his comfort zone and change. We've had the body of the Lake Show for the most part has always been the same songs for the 20 or 30 minutes that he shoots before the finale Pyromusical goes up, and he's going to change almost that entire track. So this is definitely a departure for him too. So it's a cool experience, man. It's one that that you get to that point in life where you're the people that you love the most, you're getting older, and it's been fun to kind of work on this with Dad, but at the same time, it's kind of
emotional.
Yes, extremely, 100%. So
I'm sure you'll do it justice, brother. She'll be watching. So. She's got the best seats in the house. They have the best seats.
Yeah, they do. I wish they could. I wish I could tell them to record me some footage.
Oh God!
Send me the MP4s, please.
Use Max up here.
All right. Well, let's do. So let's dive into workflow, and I guess let me set the stage for what I mean by workflow, because this could be, there's a workflow for every single little subcompartmentalized part of Pyro show design, period. So what I mean by workflow, and I guess what we're going to really unpack here at a 10,000 foot level, is scripted work. One, it's all going to be in the context of scripted work and Pyromusicals. From beginning to end, what's your workflow? Where do you start? Right? If you're going to get a show, what is step one all the way through to what you do prior to show day. And, we don't need to dive into these at depth. We can do that at a later date if we want to, talk about these ad nauseum in subcontext. But we'll start with AJ.
Jamie.
We'll start. We can start with Jamie. Jamie, you get for your show every single year for your annual Pyromusical at Potts Farm. What's step one for you?
Well, step one, since I already know my venue, is choosing some music that will fit amongst my crowd of young kids, country boys, and all the visitors that come out from all ages. So I look for music that I like, that I know other people will like too, to kind of reach them all, because everybody seems to enjoy the fireworks, but they also like the music. So I try to make something that's going to reach out to everybody so they all can enjoy it. And from there, then I start just playing around in a simulation and listening to the music over and over again. I listen to the music while I'm mowing. I listen to the music while I'm driving, and just start finding points that I'm like, okay, I can do that. And then I start visualizing it, and then I start putting it into a simulation to kind of see what it does. And then I proceed to work on it for several months until it's something that I like. And then I start prepping the work several months in advance, testing, taking it out on shoot sites, testing different angles, just visually actually see it. And then usually about a couple weeks before the shoot date is when I actually start getting out on the shoot site, prepping the site, getting product out there, and trying to make it where it can actually be shot off at a reasonable hour that I actually tell them it's going to be shot off at.
Sounds like you differ a little bit in the sense that the music selection, you're still very considerate about the people that you're doing the show for. I myself am completely guilty of this. If I'm paying for a show and I know it's like one of those things where it's straight out of pocket, you know what? Screw it. You guys are going to listen to what I want you to listen to. But it's a totally different thing if somebody else is paying for it. If somebody else is paying for it, it's a sponsored show, then they get what they want.
I'll typically, absolutely, if I'm paying for it, there's definitely going to be some aspect in that show that I truly love, or I truly want, a song or a product or whatever it is.
Yeah.
But just everybody donates to the party. It's not even my party. I just put on the show because I love Pyro so much. So I try to cater to everybody and make sure everybody enjoys it. And also to make sure that, those donations are a little bit higher the next year.
Yeah. What about you, AJ? Where do you start?
Oh, well, to be completely honest, just in panic mode.
Panic mode?
Yeah, that's exactly what I do. I call Bo, I'm freaking out, man. All winter I was hoping to get something done and nothing got done. But no, I'm pretty much similar to where Jamie starts off. Of course, it's always about the music. But I usually listen to music all year round and find stuff. The problem is for me especially, and I know both of you know this is my issue, I get addicted to a few songs, but then something else catches me and it's like, all right, now I want to go to that. So music selection for me takes a little longer, but only if it's more than one song in a show. So I guess this year's just killing me.
I know.
But yeah, this music's basically what it is, but not like I guess Jamie as well. I don't care because I'm paying for it. So I'll put some death metal in there if I want to.
Yeah.
But I try to pick something that I know is crowd friendly. I don't want to come out there with cuss words and everything. Even though there's a couple songs I really like to do. But other than that, once I have the music locked down and into the system, by the time I jump into it, usually I'm already thinking ahead of time. All right, I thought, I would like to follow the lyrics for this section. I'd like to follow the drums for this section or the guitars for this section. I try to find something in a song that if a person doesn't know it and the first time they're going to hear it, what part of the song are they going to hear the most? They're obviously maybe not going to understand the lyrics if they're quick or if they're in a heavy section, but they're going to hear those drums or that snare, or they're going to hear that, whatever that one something is. And usually that's the best thing about asking my wife, because I'm like, what do you hear in this song?
Yep.
Yeah. That's
and
good.
it really,
finding the focal point in music is huge, right? When artists make music, they're trying to make a section to make you feel a certain way, but in almost every single piece of music, like in the music that I've written, I mean, there's sections of the song that every single section has a focal point. It has something that I specifically put there that was meant to be, it's meant to be that part that I want people to pay attention to, right? And I think every artist does it the exact same way. So what's cool about Fireworks and the visual aspect along with the music is you get to see how other people interpret that same section or that piece of music, which is really stinking cool.
Yep.
Oh,
one of these days, I would love to do something too between like the three of us, where I'll throw out a piece of music, just a little 30-second piece, and just completely unabated, all three of us separate and not even talk about it, and just do a really quick design and see what the other person hears, which is cool, because again, you're creating that emphasis for all of the people that you're putting the show on for. So chances are, if you bring attention to that focal point, then they're going to understand it too. So after music selection, is it safe to say that all three of us, to a degree, after music has been semi-solidified, I'm doing the air quotes thing, once that music is selected, you go into product analysis mode, and then it's just a matter of, okay, what do you think the section screams to be able to, begin layout? Or do you guys do anything in between, the actual selection of the music and going to your timeline to start laying cues out?
I usually, after I find music that I like I really feel something, I listen to it a lot. And I'll be like, well, I kind of want to take that little small section and figure out, am I going to use the whole song? Or am I going to use 75% of it? What am I going to use? And if I'm using 2 songs, okay, where would be a good break point? And once I got that, now I know, okay, I'm working with 5 minutes, and I'll actually go through Audacity or some other music cut down app, and I'll make the track kind of what I'm wanting to use. So then I can start playing with it that way. Yeah. But I'll listen to it just kind of like AJ said, listening for, guitar solos and, vocalist points and just different areas that I'm like, okay. And I'll be thinking about it while I'm listening to it. And then I'll start incorporating it into a simulation and start playing around with it and be like, oh, I like that. And then I might even edit the song again after I've started. I was like, I really want to do that.
Yeah. So I think that's kind of cool you say that, because like there's, when you take one piece of music, especially in the kinds of Pyromusicals that we tend to do, where, like the budget isn't obviously what you need it to be to feel like you can convey the whole freaking thing over, like a 5-minute song. Yeah.
What budget?
So it's
the
being able to,
you break every year.
Being able to cut those songs down tastefully and still uphold the
message.
Yeah, still uphold the integrity of the piece of music it's
Absolutely.
super important, right? Because it's like you can find jarring points in that. It's noticeable when you hit sections in a song. If somebody screws up the track stitch between one song and another, like that's impactful, because if you can hear it, if you say to yourself, "Uh-oh, I heard that and it doesn't sound right," then all of a sudden it's like, it almost unplugs you a little bit. It pulls you out of the way that things look and feel.
Yep.
All right.
Jamie, do you put any kind of points on a timeline? Will you go through a section of music and then throw points on a timeline before you actually start laying stuff out? Or do you more do the visual walkthrough of your timeline? Like, okay, I'm working on this section, I'll just start laying things out and then see how it all kind of comes together.
I don't quite understand your question 100%.
He's asking you, do you do it in a
Do I start from 0 seconds to 4 minutes, or
exactly.
do I jump
or do you jump around and then you have no idea? You're like, oh, these comics look good. Here, let me try this. Nope, let's move them this way. Nope, let's try it this way. Or do you visualize it in your head before you lay it on the timeline?
I do it all. I visualize it as a start, and then I will. I go to a section I'm like really feeling like, just like, you hear about authors, they write down their thoughts and their notes as soon as they have them, so they don't forget about them. I do the same thing when I'm scripting. Like, I really want to do this, the guitar solo in Danger Zone. I started figuring out how I wanted to run a zipper cake, and then I found one finally and tore it apart and figured out how I want to do it. I worked on that for a while because I was really in the mood for it. And then I'm like, okay, I'm bored with this. I'm done. And I went somewhere else. Yeah. And then, like AJ said, I'll lay comet runs out, mine runs down. I'll put comets down, but like, no, I think I want to try mines. And I'll put it on the timeline so I can kind of visualize it. I know what I'm trying to do, but until I see it, it's not working out so well. Yeah.
Do you ever go outside of the context of your music to create really cool chases and really cool runs, and you're like, okay, now I have this, I'm going to figure out where I can use this same thing more or less in the context of the show?
Absolutely. Like Parabolics doing Angel Wings.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, anytime I can find a chance to use those, again, Danger Zone, when they talk about wings, guess what I'm going to use? I'm going to use 2 Parabolics. When you say ride into the Danger Zone, I'm going to do a parabolic that draws into itself. Yeah, there's multiple things that I'll use, and I'll use it in multiple shows if I hear it. Songs that have butterfly, of course, I'm going to find me a butterfly slice. A lot of things like that.
Cool. AJ, I think you and we have a similar workflow where it's almost like we'll listen to that music, but we get technical in the identification of the hit points on the timeline in that music. And then we'll go back and then figure out, okay, how do we build something that helps emphasize the focal points that we've identified, and just listening and kind of scrutinizing the waveform.
Yeah. And the only problem with that is too, and I think you can agree with me on this one, there's some parts of music that we hear that other people don't hear. And I catch that a lot by asking Amber, I'm like, what about this part? She's like, I don't really pay attention to that. And I'm like, God, that was a focus point in my head.
It's kind of cool you say that, because it goes back to what we were talking about before in terms of, you're seeing a visual representation of what somebody else heard. There's like times where, and I think like you're a drummer. I remember watching some of your first show designs, hardcore, man. You were hitting every snare crack, all of these double bass movements through different sections of songs. You could tell what you were emphasizing. And like the drums, especially in, these faster Pyromusical segments, there's something that everybody can see and follow. There's no right or wrong answer when it comes to doing that stuff. I mean, whether you're following a vocal, whether you're following a guitar part, a freaking flute. I don't, whatever's playing. I think the most important message and takeaway when it comes to the analysis of the music selection and figuring out what you're going to put where is, what do you hear? Right? What do you hear, and what are you paying attention to? Because if you can design something beautiful around that, then everyone else is going to see. I mean, it's almost going to be a window to, it's a window to what you saw, which is, it's a beautiful thing.
Well, not only that, but I believe the shows turn out better when it's something that, like you said, you're representing something that you hear. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Because it's what you hear. It's what you feel. So then when you script something, you feel like you actually want to do something with it, or something that it's going to be actually easier, or, oh God, how am I trying to put this? I know you know what I'm saying here. It shows a little side of you, like you're saying, but it becomes easier.
Yeah.
I don't know. There's been a few times I played around with songs like I was like, oh, someone will like this. This would be a good song to just, and then I just don't feel it.
Yep.
I walk away from it.
Yeah. There's parts of the design workflow, like, cause I've done it too, where, I've identified something on my waveforms where I'll go in, I'll have something laid out in Finale, and then I'll have all of these hit points on my waveform. Like, okay, here's what I'm sold on. This is exactly what I'm going to design to. And I'll sit down for 2 days, work on that, little 30 or 45 second segment. And then when the whole thing's said and done, I hate this. This. Yeah, right. We're going to start from square one because it's total garbage.
Welcome to 2023, because that's what I've been doing all month. You guys come from, both of you have more of a music background too, so you look at things a little differently. So like you said,
but that's what makes your shows awesome.
I enjoy just listening to music, feeling the music, and that's how I script, is just based on how it makes me feel and the emotional aspect of the song. You guys are more technical with the drum snares and the bass lines and things like that some other people may not get. You don't have to script any particular way. It's an art.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%.
Artistic aspect is completely different, and
100%, dude. Because I think I think a lot of that too can change with the kind of show that you're trying to put up. I mean, let's face it, like, a lot of us, we deal in 1/4 Pyromusicals pretty much almost exclusively. I mean, I think some of us deal in the 1/3 stuff. Like, I'll do 1/3 stuff for OPEG. AJ, you do some of the 1/3 stuff with RKM. But I mean, to a degree, the bigger you get with your display,
the harder it is to go back.
The harder. If you've got 6-inch shells just going ape to emphasize a downbeat, right? And you've got everyone's heads looking to the sky. Is that a good place to put in a bunch of low-level one-shot work below it to emphasize a cool segment that had something there? Good luck doing that tastefully, because you're going to be pulling attention on the field visually. The musical attention might be there, but to be able to get people to look, way up in the sky, to view these 6-inch shells with whatever, crescendo you're trying to hit in a piece of music, but then you've got a bunch of stuff going on underneath it. Unless you can figure out how to kind of tailor all of that into one easily digestible sight picture, it gets a little more difficult. With 1/4 displays, I think we have the luxury of being able to look out on a field and see everything that's going on without kind of herky-jerky and everybody's necks around to look at things.
Yeah, I mean, so you're talking about keeping your shells breaking when they should and not doing a bunch of stuff down low where you're like, oh, I had to look back down again kind of thing.
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry. I just want to make sure I was following what you were saying.
Yeah.
For the other listeners out there that are, I'm AJ, by the way, and I'm kind of slow. If you don't hear it in
you
my
said
voice.
It, not me.
I know. It's okay. I can admit it. I'm actually pretty stupid. I'm not
AJ,
book smart.
In the workflow process, I have a question for you.
Absolutely.
So since you have color issues, how do you address that in your workflow on, selecting products?
You went there.
I'm colorblind. Yeah.
He went there.
It's fine. It's completely fine.
Hey, it's a legit question because
that's true, though,
you're colorblind and you put on some beautiful, amazing shows that are very color harmonic. And how do you go about doing that? Something with a colorblind handicap in the fireworks industry?
So believe it or not, there's actually a lot of colorblind people in Pyro, and I didn't know it. I'm not a lot of people that I know that I hang out with, but when I went to change the subject in a half a second, with the red and green on the Cobra, the lights, I can't see it in the sun. They both look identical to me. I can't see them change. So I had asked Scott to change it to blue and green so I could see the difference between the two. Well, everybody on the Cobra site was like, oh, I can't see him either. I'm colorblind too. And I was like, wow, there is other people that shoot shows that are colorblind. So I'm not the only one. But to answer your question, it wasn't until after 2021 show, my buddy Bo here said, we're going to have to work on some color flow variations or something. He said to me, I don't remember the exact
harmony
dictionary words he was giving me.
Yeah, color harmonies.
But, he said, you start using a color wheel. And it really clicked with me to think, well, yeah, I'm colorblind. I guess that'd be the best way to do it. And even if you're not colorblind, I'm sure it's a great way to start. It's something that you can reference 24/7 to see what goes with it.
Yep.
Cool.
Yeah. You treat your wife good enough to where when you make something, you're like, hey, did I completely screw this up, or am I on the right, am I in the ballpark of
I got this
semi-digestible?
I send stuff to you guys all the time. Is this red or is this orange? Is this green or yellow? Is this blue, purple, or pink?
That's good. You know what? Neither. I think before we start the Rhythm Pyro podcast Facebook, I'm going to make a goof Facebook group. It's going to be Pyro Design for the Colorblind. AJ, you can be a moderator.
The admin? No,
yeah, AJ's a moderator. The admin. You guys can get together for semi-annual bowling tournaments or something.
All green show.
Yeah.
Looks yellow.
It's already a right green show.
So, all right, let's see here. We had, we left off at, I guess,
sitting down and landing stuff.
Yeah. So there's a lot of different things that go on when it comes to throwing things on a timeline. When you guys feel like the design is done, and I'm talking about 100% the creative stuff. Do you guys do anything else in the administration of, prep work inside, whether it be inside your design software, and I think we're all a little different. AJ uses ShowSim. Jamie and I are on Finale 3D. But I mean, what do you guys do once you're done with the creative stuff, right? Once you're out of that creative mindset and you're totally happy with the way that your display looks in the visual simulation, where do you guys go from there?
So at this point, we're just to be clear, we're ready to get this show a rocking, is what you're saying.
Yeah, you're
right?
ready to rock. You're ready to rock and roll. It's time to file away the Liberace, totally
Site
artsy
paperwork.
fartsy creative stuff and start kind of putting the rubber of the road on how do I take everything that I've created in this visualization and my sim and make it shootable.
The first thing I will do is I'll make several copies and label it final script. So I know I'm using the correct script and it's done. And I have multiple copies because
you're saying you got a file folder where you've got 40 files in it, and there's no discernible way to tell which one's the final show file.
Final
anymore.
version 1.1. The one that is final version 6.0.6.
I will clear up everything. So basically, I'll make sure I have the final rendered file on the USB drives everywhere I need, so I have it at all times and it doesn't get lost. But at that point, now I need to get everything in order. I need to get off reports. I need to get my product, make sure I've got all the product that I have in my sim. And if I don't, I need to really quickly find it. But I'll print out the reports and actually get my hands on all the product, print labels, and start separating things how it needs to go, so I can, on a shoot day, it's not crazy. It's just drop and go, or I can have anybody on my shoot site who's never helped me before know what needs to be done. I just handed them a section, say, hey, go handle this.
Right.
But it's basically just organization, getting off the reports, getting the product, getting everything labeled, get all my racks set to the angles they need to be, everything I can possibly do prior to a shoot to actually just minimize the workload.
Right. Make it more efficient on site for everybody that shows up to help.
Exactly.
Yeah. Are you placing your orders for things after you're completely done and your design's completely laid out, or are you in tandem while you're walking through that process, kind of, working with your manufacturers and earmarking stuff?
Post-COVID, I am finding that product early on in the stage. So January, February, March at the latest. If I'm scripting something and there's a product, I'm like, I really want to use this for this section, I'm hunting it down.
Yeah.
Just like the one section I did for a guitar solo with the zipper cake. I spent a month talking to you and AJ and multiple other people out there trying to find a particular zipper that I needed that I could utilize. And until I found it, I was up in the air in 45 seconds of my show. So I do it as I'm scripting. A lot of the stuff I have on hand. A lot of the stuff I know I can get pretty easily, but some of the stuff I'm like, that's unique or specific that I've seen that I really want for a particular section, I'm grabbing it as I go and making sure I get that stuff ordered earlier than later.
And I'm similar, I guess, to the same way, but I order as I script or yeah, that too. That's true. I ain't gonna lie. It's a lot easier to script if you have something in your hands, and we all know this.
You kind of got traumatized though, because you had Sky Wars going on in tandem with COVID. So I can see why that would be immensely traumatic product sourcing experience.
PTSD
going. Yeah, right. So anything going forward, you're like, I'm getting it and I'm keeping it.
Shots in 2020, so
there's plenty of them. There will be plenty of those. You don't worry about it. Marcus has got you, buddy.
Oh, exactly. Well, that's where I was going to go.
Who's Marcus?
Fireworks forever.
Yeah. I can't say where it's from though, so someone else has to say it. I'll make it sound like Nevada when we're talking about NVIDIA. There we go. See,
I know people are going to ask that. Going to be like, "What? Why is Nevada a safe word?" Well, because when AJ read it, it was supposed to be NVIDIA, but they all look the same.
I am not a smart man. But I mean, so back to that, it's when you're sourcing this stuff after, or at least for me, when I'm going through this, if I don't have it, I see if I can get it. And if it's not online, then I'll call and see if it's coming in and get is it for sure? Or is it like a maybe? Or is this like, maybe.
Yeah, right.
But the cool part is whoever your vendors are out there, if whoever's listening to this and they were thinking about doing this or want to know more, find someone that's really cool that's going to hold for you, because there's vendors like Marcus, for instance, from Fireworks Server. He will hold stuff for me, or which is great. It's awesome. You don't get a lot of people to actually do something like that. And same thing at Arcam. What's that? Stop talking about it. So like I said, Brian at Arcam, they'll hold stuff too, and they're pretty good about that kind of thing. So it's nice to have that on your side. If not, you'll drive yourself nuts. At least for me, I would drive myself nuts. I don't understand how you do it, Bo, to be honest with you, where you might something, you're like, and I'll source. I couldn't find it, so I switched it. So that's a gift on another side that I don't have.
No, I don't.
That would drive me nuts.
You're 100% correct, right? Having those supplier relationships is huge, right? During that product selection, I hurt big time through COVID. That's why Power Rangers was we have leftover product that's a smorgasbord of tons and tons of different colors. So before I even knew that I was going to do a Power Rangers show, I'm trying to think to myself, how in the hell is somebody who likes to get super harmonizing with colors, do I get rid of all of this product that's not the same color? None of it's matchy in any way, shape, or form. What do I do? So I harmonized through the theme of the show.
Oh, sorry, I pushed the mute button. I was like, why? I don't see a thing on the timeline.
AJ, how do you separate the creative from the technical when it comes to design? And then how do you kind of segue that into, okay, now I have to start, creating something that's shootable on the field?
Well, I think anything I design would be shootable. At least it comes from my brain.
But there's a lot to be said for that particular piece of it, right? Because I think a lot of people, when they roll out their first couple of Pyromusicals, they'll lay stuff out on the timeline. They'll dump the entirety of all of their stuff into, a few launch containers in their software, a few launch positions, either in Finale or in ShowSim, and then run it out to the field and then realize, oh shit, I probably didn't buy enough match to fit all of this stuff within a 2020 footprint. There's a lot that goes into kind of pre-prep.
Oh, yeah.
So yeah,
I think it's a learning experience too, though. I mean, really it is. So, I mean, your first, at least my first one, between 3-footer, 7-footer, 10-footers for matches, that kind of thing. Like thinking of those aspects, that wasn't even a thought in my brain. Even though like I had conversations with you and you had guided me through so much before that first Pyromusical I did, it wasn't really something I really truly even thought about.
Yeah.
Really, because you don't know what's going on. So I had nothing but 10-footers and I think we had 10-footers for the show that you came up for too, that we used like 3 feet of. So I think once you learn your equipment and your site and understand after your first show, I think that comes after that fact. But I guess if I had to give advice to someone out there, and here we go, it's the advice. You gonna play it, Bo? Are you gonna play it? Oh, wait, here we go.
Hola amigos, this is Fireworks and by This is Luis Alfredo. Sit down, grab your pillow, and enjoy a siesta while he tells you about how his way of doing things is muy superioso, okay?
That was a beautiful segue, man. I'm so happy you said that. As soon as you said advice, my eyebrow ticked up. I'm like, hold on a second. Yeah. Okay, go ahead. Hit me with it, buddy.
Oh my God. I lost whole train of thought there.
I was going to say, please tell me you didn't forget the advice.
Oh, man.
Say it again. No, totally. Just my opinion. It would be, so your first show, if you're talking to someone about it, or talk to somebody that's done this before and ask their advice and listen to their advice and adjust from there. Because if you go in thinking, I'm just going to do this all this way, you're going to suffer your first one and you'll learn the hard way pretty much. Amen. So I've done it. Everybody here has done it.
All of us have done it. And I think I think that's the community curse, right? And I think as hobbyist designers, because all of us do this just because we love to do it, when we get on the Facebook groups and the forums and stuff, and we're like, oh my God, how do you do this? And then you see all these answers. One, you don't know which answer to pay attention to a lot of the time, but then you'll get people that will more along the line say the same kind of stuff. You learn really quick. I was one of those people where I was stubborn as all get out, right? And I learned really quickly how to be humbled in the face of the people that knew what they were doing. Because I mean, whether it's goofy, stupid rack builds or the wrong way to lay things out in launch positions, or not making an efficient use of my budget when it comes to e-match selection and all of this stuff. Yeah, frog tape. Frog tape versus painter's tape. Yeah, our internal chat's going nuts here. He's making sure that I hit that. Yeah, frog tape's a big one. If you don't want your crap to be dirty, but if you want your crap to look dirty because you don't shoot enough shows every year, then you use Harbor Freight masking tape because it makes your racks look more manly. And
that's why it doesn't come off. It's Harbor Freight tape. Oh my God.
It's for a tighter fit on
Brian Craig, I apologize that your racks get treated in such a way.
You've been reduced to Harbor Freight.
Okay amigos, this has been Fireworks and by This is Luis Alfredo. Laters.
That's great.
Oh, I wonder why I can't get anything done in a day.
Is that Katie?
No, it's not Katie. It's some little text to speech AI Mexican kid that I found on the internet.
Man, Katie's awesome.
She nailed it. She nailed that delivery.
She's been like, yeah.
It's okay.
It's okay. You know what I'm saying? It's okay. Hey.
All right. Okay. All right. Let's see. Let's see. What? All right. I think
what do you do, Bo?
So, how do I do?
Your pages and pages at Skywars was epic.
Yeah.
Can I throw one thing in with that?
Yeah. Go ahead.
So, because Jamie was talking about adding reports and things like that and stuff he does. And it goes back to what we were discussing. Everyone is a little different, and no right way is the wrong way, and no wrong way is the right way kind of thing for everybody. I don't really have a lot of reports for my shows. I think the only thing that I do, and I handwrite it because I can't print it out, is I handwrite what channel is going to where on the field at what module. So that way I have a list. If something goes wrong, I have something to look back on. But
yeah, really so you got a master reference that you can kind of look down at and go, hey, okay, if I see a continuity issue here, and it's on channel 32, you can easily find out where 32 is on the field.
Correct. But for reports for anything else, there's not a lot of reports that I really use. I guess the only one I guess you technically use, but I never print them out, is finding your angles, getting all that stuff set up, and making sure. I guess that's an important thing. I don't know if that'll be another subject down the line, but whatever racks you're using, people, make sure that you can fit all the angles that you can possibly fit in that location. Because I've done it one time on accident.
Absolutely. Something to talk about later.
Yep. Yeah. 100%. Yeah. And I think that kind of goes back to what you're saying before. Know the limitations of your gear.
The main thing is you have limitations of your shoot site and your equipment. So you need to pay attention to that while you're designing. That's why I test. I mean, I shot those meteors into the woods, but I tested it before. So I adjusted my angles in my script after I was done, after I realized, there's trees there.
Right.
And a meteor into the trees sounds like a baseball.
It's just pyro pinball.
I guess it'd be more like a golf ball.
But let's go back to where Jamie asked you. He was talking about Skywars and the reports and stuff for you.
I mean, you had 2011 cues?
Yeah, it was 2011 cues. But I think so.
In 2 days.
Yeah, I think it was basically 2.5.
With no product on site.
With no product on site.
It was hell days.
It's fine. It's fine because you know what? That's a normal pyro show. That's normal. I wish if I had the luxury to build a lot of it somewhere else myself, I probably still wouldn't do it because that sounds terrible. That doesn't sound like any fun at all. And I trust you guys. So all's well.
The Pyro Dad.
That's right. So when it comes to reports, I've changed the way I look at reports, and I'm not saying physically look at them. I've changed. I realized that I was wasting a ton of paper, which I say tongue in cheek because I don't necessarily care about that. But before, like when I would do the lake shows every single year, I found that I was the only one looking at these reports, right? Because, anytime we did different positions, I would either hand them my book and then they would go do it. And they would be the only person, not only have a crew of 4 or 5 guys at the lake any one given year. So the book was just there for people to reference. But for the most part, the only report in finale business at the time, and even now, I guess in 3D that I find super valuable is the loading report. But even saying that, I've changed my outlook on using that report. Now I've found it a lot easier to export my script in ACS II format, ASCII format, out to like an Excel spreadsheet and then make it sortable. So when I'm doing rack setting before we ever get to a show, that's really the only thing I'll do before a show. But setting those racks before the show, I can open up my spreadsheet and instead of thumbing through a bunch of papers to get to the one that shows all of my stuff and where all my angles need to be on a rack, now I can not only filter by that rack in an Excel spreadsheet, but I can also sort them by how the angles go, right? So I can do a sort that'll tell me, okay, you got 5 shots that all go 60 degrees, so then I can change those 5 chambers to 60 degrees and then it just moves on to the next. So I can do it in order. But at a high level, if it's a show that really doesn't require, because I think even when you guys came to help at the lake, I think I just did like a little Google Drive or a little Google Sheets where everybody could kind of jump into the sheet, find whatever rack they were working on, and then you guys could kind of sort and kind of do that from there. And I don't know if that was helpful for you guys to do, because again, I would always do those, but I would do them on the computer. I bet it was probably more of a pain in the butt to try to do that working on your phone.
Yeah, I mean, it's just a smaller screen. You're outside, you're staring at it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So like, and what you're talking about was extremely helpful. Once you relayed that information to me about how to do that, that made setup so much more easier.
Yeah, I mean,
because you usually have to count it in like
you got to count them, and it's really cool in Excel. If you can you grab a cell, you drag down. If it was say you have 15 or 16 straight up, vertical shots on a rack. It's a whole lot to look at when you're looking at it top down in Excel or in Google Sheets. If you highlight every single one of those, it'll give you a count. It'll tell you, lower right-hand corner of either one of those programs, it'll tell you exactly how many cells you have selected. So from there, you can just, grab a piece of tape and mark your chambers off, and then boom, go through and do your setup afterwards. So, I mean, it's that kind of stuff. Loading and setup reports are one thing. I think it's Skywars. Skywars was a different story because because everything was so accelerated. Yeah, it was because things were so accelerated in setup. I wanted to make sure that as all of these different crews were divided out into workloads, first day and a half were really just one shots, and then everything else was, I think AJ, you did a lot of the cakes and then a lot of the slices for that stuff too. But or at least I know you were my auditor on
you
slices.
Had a plan
for
each,
Heart of Fire.
You had a plan for each day to have certain sections done, and you had different people dedicated to different sections as well.
Yeah, that's kind of stuff that I'll sit back, and when you're looking at a really, really big show like that, that's the only time that I'll ever go to that length. And I think I even built an Excel backend that just puked out a report that would tell people, okay, you have this rack, and at this rack, you're going to be, you'll have this product. So you'll go grab your box of that product, which was already sorted because we did that day one. And then from there, it even had here's all of the hardware that's going to be available to you for this position. That kind of stuff is super rare. I think that doing that level of basically planning and oversight. I mean, if there was another big show that I had to do again, maybe I'd do something similar to that, because it just depends on the setup. But I mean, AJ does more or less the same kind of show, huge show, and it's way less, you don't see any of the reports, you don't see any of this stuff. And that's not to say that stuff does not work, because again, he does you do a really good job of conveying what our job is on site. And I think that's really what it comes down to, right? It's having a plan and knowing how you're going to. I also
come there with everything sorted in boxes, like you said, everybody else does. So that's a whole nother section that doesn't have to be,
you broke Skywars down to rudimetric levels and kept it as simple as possible that a carpenter could do it. I mean, no use in fireworks or any experience.
Make fun of a trades worker?
I made fun of a carpenter. He could have said plumber, but he did not.
I did not.
He did not. He picked another tradesman.
But anybody with no experience with fireworks could have done it because of the rudimentary level that you put it down to. But like AJ, he's just been doing this so long and so many times that he knows what he has to do, and he can convey that very easily.
Yeah.
I don't know if I've done it that long though.
You've done it several years and
I just had a
times.
good teacher.
His experience.
You know enough about what you've experienced, how you've experienced it, and what you've learned. And I think from several years worth of screwing it up and doing it the wrong way, people would ask, how do you get to the point where you can do this stuff? And one of the biggest takeaways always is, after your show, sit down and make a list of all the stuff that you said to yourself throughout your entire, whether it be design all the way through getting the show off the ground. I hated that. I hated every second of this, because chances are, if whatever you say makes your list of stuff that you feel like didn't go smoothly or you hate or whatever, that's all stuff. Yeah, that's all stuff that you can sit down and figure out how to better make an efficient plan of action to kind of get through that the next time you got to go through it.
And what was it was it Einstein or Thomas Edison? He didn't find out 100 ways to fail. He found 100 ways
right. Not to make a light bulb.
Exactly.
That's right. Exactly. That's right. He didn't discover light bulb. He found 100 ways not to do it.
That is correct. You learn from your mistakes.
Yeah. Yeah. So find out what works for you. And I think as far as workflow goes, if we were to break it down in a summary from beginning to end, because I think we've touched on everything from music all the way through to show day here. Is there anything that you guys want to cover for workflow when it comes to the actual execution of the show? Like what about, when do you guys try to go through your testing procedures? I mean, obviously, I think the answer to that
immediately
is as soon as possible.
Do you mean the script itself or just testing all your modules? Or both?
Yeah, I don't know. I guess maybe we can talk about that too. I mean, I think all of us do some degree of gear testing before we'll actually roll out to the field, because that would be stupid.
Yeah, I mean, I test all my gear, charge on my gear, make sure it's all working actually a couple months in advance in case I need to replace batteries or send something in so I'm not down something. But my scripting, I'll run it all the way through, my sound system, actually the actual speakers, and test it out in the field to make sure the sound's going to sound good, mixing board, whatever I'm using, several months in advance. Once I'm done with it, I'm going to test it and just like, okay, that sounds good. That's going to work. And then same thing with my script. I'm going to make sure everything's working and everything's flowing smooth and all that. And then on shoot day, I'm getting all that equipment, make sure it's all charged while I'm multitasking at that point. But that's one of the first things I do. I'll make sure all my modules are charged the night before. And then once everything's hooked up, getting everything in test mode, make sure I got continuity on everything as soon as possible. Try to get that done a few hours before the actual show starts. So it's kind of not a stressful moment in the dark.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep.
And we've all been there.
Every year. Actually, last year went as smooth as butter.
Yeah, AJ did a great job.
Oh, didn't it rain?
He did. AJ did an amazing job. I actually just watched. It was raining. I was under the tent and he was running around. It was great. Thank you, AJ.
What does that mean?
It means he was dry and you had to do all the work. And I love that.
But I had it organized. He knew what he was doing.
Did. He knew what his job was.
That's all that matters.
That's right. He fused that cake with perfection, baby.
Yeah. Stop talking about it.
You didn't fuse anything. I only fused it. You just had to pick things up and put them down.
What? I couldn't help it. What did you just say?
You said you had to fuse that cake. I said all you had to do is pick things up, put them down.
Pick things up,
because all the racks and cakes were already ready.
Well,
we were just waiting for the rain
and testing. We tested. Well, actually, technically, you and me tested 2 days prior, right? It was 2 days prior to your show.
We had a few of them tested. Yeah, we had quite a few of them already tested and ready.
Well, you guys do local continuity checks prior to the show? Because I think we did at your show, Jamie. I think we went down the line as we set stuff up and did local continuity checks after a position was kind of confirmed. Done. All right, it's all landed. It's all punched down.
After I matched something, I check continuity just to make sure everything's, especially before I clean up wire management, because I test it before and after.
Yeah.
And then before the show.
Yeah. The local continuity checks do wonders for checking the actual position. We all shoot Cobra here. So, once things are done locally, pull up your 18R2 and you're thumbing through all your channels. I think at that point, in the back of your mind, it gives you a warm and fuzzy that if you don't have a channel or you're not seeing it, but you had local continuity, chances are, here's what it probably is. It's, this module probably just wasn't synced to the system, or, somebody probably just didn't put the antenna in, which isn't so much a problem anymore with mesh networking,
or it's still in test mode.
Yeah, right. Yep.
Or you get what I got last July, which is important too.
STD.
Doing local, and then what did you just say to me?
He said an STD. But go ahead.
Oh, anyways. Dick.
Or you get what I get, herpes.
Doing local continuity is the best, obviously, yes. But as soon as you can, turn on that remote and double check it from there. Because while everything was perfectly fine out there during locals, as soon as I turn on the remote, I am missing 2 channels. So I went out there. I'm like, oh, the module's got to be off. Get there. There is no module hooked up to these slats. Panic mode because show's going off and I'm the finale with 14 minutes to spare to run to the truck and hook this up and get it all back together the way it's got to go. Because in my head, I thought, oh, everything's fine. We tested continuity. All I got to do is turn on the remote. Good to go. Nope.
That's a very funny story. I think the one that takes the cake was at Jamie's show when those randos plugged both ends, plugged in a DB25 cable from slat A to slat B. And I think they even had another one where they took the same DB25 cable and plugged it in to one side of slat B, and then again, the other side into the other side of slat B. They weren't attached to any module. They were just, it's like people just took a cable.
Module melted.
I wish I could have been there.
Yeah.
I miss everything.
Well, you know what? Dad took that surprisingly well. For somebody who
Jamie's got money.
That's true.
He knew he was going to get it back.
That's true.
I think it was in the mail before he got home.
Dude. Yeah, it was in. I think the Cobra. I think he forwarded us the hey, your order's in. We had that like the next morning, so Dad was pretty happy. Normally, when that crap happens and like somebody uses his stuff and he's like, you'll hear for hours, but this is why I don't let people use my stuff.
He gave him his name.
Yeah,
he likes me. Big time, small time.
So with your crew that you have, Bo, and I mean, I guess that's another good point we could all talk about too, is how our shows your planning for these shows determines by what crew you have, I guess.
Yeah, that's true.
The quality of the crew, the knowledge of the crew, and how many people you have. Because 2 of you ain't putting together 1,000 cues in 2 days.
Yeah.
Please show
that's part of the planning, I guess. Too, is to know who you're going to have there.
It's part of the planning, and this has gotten hard for me the last couple of years, especially like the late, because I feel like I've lost the interest of a lot of my cousins in the family that would historically be there to kind of help Dad and I with this stuff. I mean, we gained one of Dad's friends. John comes out, and John's awesome. He helps out a ton. He does good work with Dad, and keeping Dad on task, or at least not so much keeping him on task as it is like getting him to kind of on delay. Let's try to move it along a little, 1 notch or 2 above the speed of molasses.
Just don't worry about it.
Exactly. Don't worry about it. Getting him to move that stuff along, that's where things get really, like my stress level tends to boil over, and I need to be a little better because I don't handle that well. This is like Dad and I and our relationship with fireworks. It's awesome stuff. And I feel like it's done wonders for our relationship, but like doing the lake show with him, I just need to cool my jets sometimes when it comes to the speed in which he puts his stuff together. Cause it just, I am not the fastest in the world when it comes to putting stuff together, but I think what happens is like that pressure mounts over when you're down to show day, the morning of show day, and you got a body segment that has 1 out of 3 boards completely done, and then the Pyromusical is not even completely, like it's not laid out on the boards and totally out the door yet. Maybe that could be sitting somewhere around 80% at that point, but losing those bodies, it is really hard to plan for that kind of stuff. This past year for Power Rangers, that was the worst I think that it's been in years. And that was a low Q count show, right? I mean, the biggest part of that show was the integration with DMX, which was different. So there was some admin stuff that I had to do last minute because I think last minute I figured I wanted to go from shooting traditional straight audio box to an integration, a mix of audio boxes and SMPTE, and then run the entire show off of SMPTE timecode and utilize Pyrocast while it's still free. But so it was really, and again, really cool stuff. But as far as having help, I got some help the day of the show, whether it be from neighbors, and then a couple of my cousins showed up. But at that point, you know, they're not really privy to anything that's happened before that. So they just kind of show up and they're like, hey, what do you want me to do? And at that point, there's still so much stuff to do. It was way easier. Like the year that you guys came out was a godsend because, you know, you feel like there's two more of yourself. You know, you feel like there's two more people that know exactly what to do and how to do it. And they don't require any of that supervision. But, you know, the people that touch it, if you have people that help out from family every single year, they're only touching that stuff once a year for, you know, maybe a week tops or a few days. So it gets to be one of those things where there's always refreshers and there's always kind of like a degree of oversight that you want to make sure you're there for, just to make sure that everybody remembers how to do things safely and properly as they kind of go through.
Safety is big.
And even for like, so the after show, my brother-in-law, Nathan, he helps me on the shows and he only helps on the one show a year. Refreshing with him, I don't think I really ever have to do it the last few years. Like he just, it's, you know.
Well, and that's awesome that you have somebody that can retain that, right?
Trust me. And wife helps me a couple times a year and it's always a refresher. How do I poke this? What do you want me to do?
It's because she picks up all the racks and moves them for you.
Shit. That was when my back was hurt. All right. Just don't be mad. Okay.
She's the one that loads the trailer and unloads the trailer. So you
did that one time too when my back was hurt. But I guess if you're gonna find crew too, I guess find someone. They don't even have to, you know, be so into it, but just make sure that they're detailed. You know, they're not just like whatever.
And understand the danger.
Oh yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
God, there's so many things that we can discuss in this stuff that.
I know.
I see how you were talking, and sorry to go off again, how this gets so far because you start talking about one thing and it makes you think of the millions of things that technically are in this kind of planning.
Yep. Yeah, 100%, dude. Dividing it out into different subsections of what you're doing and then being able to become or embody the project manager of this kind of stuff is hugely important. And I think that's at the heart of the discussion of workflow. When you're able to feel like you can efficiently get through all of these different sub-segments of what it takes to get a fireworks show off the ground, especially scripted work, because you wear so many hats throughout the entire process. You almost have to be a jack of all of those trades to make this wildly successful. And I think the more things that you can look at from the outside and like, you know, kind of open the lens to yourself, point the lens at yourself and go, I excel at this, but I suck at this. You know, I excel at the design stuff, but, you know, I could really get better at the administrative planning, right? So when I get to a site, you know, the people that I do have coming to help that can't read my mind, they know exactly what they need to do and how to do it. Do you guys have any any final thoughts on workflow, beginning to end? Any words of wisdom?
From beginning to end, just have fun with it. Because
there you go.
And you're going to drive yourself nuts. I don't care. I drive myself nuts all the time. I call Bo. I think I call Jamie too and tell him I just can't take this. Like I'm going nuts.
Yep.
You do. But I love it that much and I want it to be so done so well. That's what gets me. That's the one big thing I wish I could get away from this is getting away from the whole nervous part of it. But I want it to be good. But have fun with it. If you're not having fun with it, the day of the show or the setup, you're not going to want to do it. And then it'll ruin it all for you. So just have fun.
Yeah. That's probably the wisest thing said. Yeah, like in the context of this entire ordeal, since I mean, we do this from the seat of hobbyists and guys that, you know, are not really meriting a paycheck by doing this crap, but it just becomes something that we're throwing our free time at. Like that's super important. All right, what do you got, Jamie? Hit me with some knowledge. Hit me with the last minute words of wisdom.
Don't wait to the last minute. There's a lot of work. Do a little bit whenever you can, and it all come together in the end.
Beautiful.
And yourself, what would be your last piece of advice, Bo?
Oh boy.
In a non-Daddy Brett way.
Yeah, in a non-Daddy Brett. Now all that's going through my head are Daddy Brettisms.
Stop talking about it.
Yeah, I know what Dad's words of wisdom would be. If I asked him right now, his would be shoot him up. That's exactly what he would say verbatim. Shoot him up. All this, and that's what you got out of that? Oh yeah, Bo, shoot him up. You got a problem with that? Let's see.
We gotta get your dad on the show.
Yeah, we do.
Oh my god, that'd be great.
Yeah, I guess the one thing, know that there's a community, an entire community behind you that is always more than willing to help. And I think at the end of the day, be able to objectively look at the way that other people do things and make a determination for yourself if it fits your application, because I think that's what's not always taken into account when you get into those, you know, when you go down one of those rabbit holes where there's 15 people arguing about the best way to do something, right? I mean, it's totally, it's like if people, it just depends on, yeah, I know. It just depends on what you're doing. Everything has to be, everything is applicable to the way your show goes, because no two sites are the same. No two product conglomerates are the same. I mean, everything is just slightly different. So all of those variables need to be taken into account before you can determine what makes sense and what's optimal for the way that you do things. So I think that's probably my high level advice. All right, there you go. There's workflow at a very high level. I'm sure there's ways that we'll figure out how to dive into all of the many things that encompass workflow. AJ, like you said earlier, there's about 1 billion different discussion points for any one itty bitty little thing that you can talk about under the umbrella.
Stop talking about it.
Stop talking about it.